5, 4, 3.
Yummy like a gummy bear.
It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this for March 28th, 2024. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, more studios are getting jettisoned out of bigger companies as industry volatility continues, and a classic PlayStation franchise may return on Xbox. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host to Game Mess Mornings. It's Marcus Stewart, everybody. Marcus, how are you doing?
I am doing great. Thank you for having me here. Hello, everyone.
I'm glad we could have you here. I'm especially glad because I know you guys have some Game Informer news to talk about and all that stuff. We're going to get into that in a second. But before that, like how things been going for you? How has this year been going for covering games? It's been kind of nonstop still since since last year, right?
Yeah, especially because everyone decided to put all their big 90-hour RPGs within the first 2.5 months.
Yeah. The only way to celebrate the end of fiscal is with a 90-hour RPG. It's how we talk about it here.
That is the goal. So yeah, I'm personally woefully behind on a lot of stuff. Yep. I've not beaten any of those games, and I'm trying to figure out how to play them all at the same time, and then realizing that's a mistake. Should probably just focus on maybe 2 of these at most, and then that's also a mistake. So maybe I should just focus on 1 at a time.
Yeah, I did commit to beating Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, and then I was like, okay, well maybe I can get to another one of these. And it turned out it's like, nope, used all my gaming juice up on that. So I've been playing stuff like yesterday. I did play some Dragon's Dogma 2 yesterday. I'm like kind of getting my footing in that game, really enjoying what I've been playing. But then yesterday evening, when I was like, I should play more Dragon's Dogma 2, I fruited around on my Steam Deck and was like, I'm going to set up or fix my emulation and get things going. There's an update to EmuDeck, and I'm gonna get that going and use a new front end to load all my emulators and stuff like that. So I did that for an hour and a half instead of playing video games. I think that's where my brain is at right now, where I'm just like, I want to mess around and not do too much else. So yeah, I get it. But yeah, news. You guys have some news over at Game Informer. What's going on?
Yes. So if you've been following Game Informer's channels over the last couple days, we announced basically a relaunch, a revamp of our subscription program. For those that don't know, Game Informer is a magazine, still a physical print magazine. For the longest time, you had to subscribe to the magazine by going to GameStop and signing up for the Power Up Rewards program to get access to the magazine, both digital and print. And over the last several months, that process kind of, for lack of a better term, broke, where the print subscription, you weren't able to get a print subscription with GameStop. Why that happened, I don't know. It's literally it's above Game Informer, what happened there. And I know it's caused a lot of confusion and frustration where some people believe that we stopped making a print magazine altogether and we're digital only, which was not the case. So basically over the series of months, we've been working very hard trying to right the ship with that and get back on track. And it's finally here. So the big change now is that, yes, you can subscribe to the print magazine again, but for the first time, I think maybe ever in a very long time, you can subscribe to the magazine directly through Game Informer without having to go to GameStop.
Right.
And
if I were so inclined, where would I go?
So the URL is subscription.gameinformer.com. If you want to go to the subscription page directly, you can sign up for a year, which gets you 10 issues for just $19.99, which sounds like a weird price, but it's actually a fun reference to the year that Game Informer was founded.
Yeah, it's really great.
Yeah, I liked it too when I heard it. So we've been around over 30 years now. So for $19.99, you get 10 issues delivered to you to your door, which is, if you do the math, less than $2 an issue. And even each issue is 84 pages of exclusive cover stories, reveals, previews, profiles, interviews from our staff, as well as we have over, I think it's 65 freelance contributors that we've had contributed some really awesome features to the magazine over the last year and a half or so from across 9 countries, all bundled together. Our cover art is usually fantastic too. Always a big highlight for each issue. But yeah, less than $2 a month for 84 pages of just video game goodness, information, all that good stuff.
The game magazine in the mail again, the way God intended.
Exactly. You get to hold it, and some people like to frame them on their wall because of how cool the art is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and in an age where, like, especially in the US, like physical like media in general is kind of a
yes, especially magazines. Yes, the country's too damn big. It's too damn big to sell magazines unless you're Game Informer, and that's why I'm glad you guys are still doing it. So yeah, like when it's like so difficult for anyone to pull this off, the fact that we still have at least one, I subscribed right away, Marcus. I was right there. I did a year. I'm going to do another year as soon as that's up. I can't wait.
Yeah, I've seen people just doing 2-year subscriptions immediately, which is awesome. Yep. And thanks to you and thanks to everyone else, our readership, our friends and peers for the support, because it does, it's been a rough year, like year and a half for like obviously the game industry from like the developer side, but also for media too, which sucks. And we have not been immune to that. We've gone through, like several rounds of layoffs. Most recently we lost Blake Hester, one of our writers, and for those that don't know, we're a very small team for how much we produce. There's we have 6 writers and 5 of them are full time, including myself, that put the magazine together, and a small but awesome production team on top of that. So, like we have not been, despite us, being under a corporate umbrella, we have felt
done nothing. Yeah.
The bad effects of this industry.
Well, just speak to that real quick. Like, so the subscription, when I subscribe, that money is gonna like go right to Game Informer, right? That money is meant to prop up Game Informer and not like sneak into GameStop's pocket, right? Yeah,
I want to say like it definitely, like I think GameStop still gets a cut.
But they own Game Informer, right? Yeah.
Yeah, like at the end of the day, they're our parent company, but it is a great way to show that Game Informer is like valuable to GameStop and help keep us around. It's a great way to support us. And yeah, I know some people would rather, that for whatever reason don't want to go through GameStop. If you feel more comfortable or enthusiastic about just subscribing through us directly, because again, we haven't had that in a very long time. This is the way to do that. So yeah, it's just so like, just from like a pure numbers game, just to show that like, hey, we really love Game Informer. We really respect the legacy. We really enjoy the work that we put out. Like, this is the best way to support that. And I then mentioned that the subscription not only gets you the print magazine, but it also gives you the digital issue too. So you get both.
Fantastic.
With the subscription. So if you want to read it on your tablet or your phone,
right? You read on the tablet. You frame the magazine, put it up on your wall for the art. There you go.
Yeah. So you get both versions of it for, again, $19.99, 10 issues a year. Sounds great.
That sounds fantastic. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear you guys are doing this. I hope it goes very well. And yeah, everyone should get out there and subscribe. One more time. That's subscription.gameinformer.com.
Yes.
All right. Subscription.gameinformer.com. Check that out, everybody. All right. Let's explain what we do here. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings, or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with Take-Two buys Gearbox Entertainment from Embracer for $460 million. This is from Haley Williams at GameSpot. After months of rumors that Embracer Group was looking for buyers for Borderlands developer Gearbox Entertainment, the studio is now officially being sold to 2K parent company Take-Two Interactive in a deal worth $460 million. Gearbox was one of Embracer Group's biggest acquisitions when it bought the company in 2021, and a deal worth up to $1.3 billion. As the deal was based on Gearbox reaching certain milestones, it's unclear how much of that $1.3 billion Embracer ended up paying out beyond the $363 million in guaranteed upfront payments. Now, as reported by Brian Crescente on Twitter, Take-Two Interactive has purchased Gearbox for $460 million, which will be paid out in Take-Two shares. The purchase includes Gearbox software in Texas, Gearbox Montreal, and Gearbox Studio Quebec, and will cover Gearbox IP, including Borderlands and Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, Risk of Rain, Brothers in Arms, and Duke Nukem. The sale doesn't include Gearbox's publishing arm in San Francisco, which published Remnant 2 and has publishing rights to the upcoming Hyper Light Breaker and other upcoming titles. The sale also excludes a number of studios purchased by Embracer through Gearbox software, including Cryptic Studios, Lost Boys Interactive, and Captured Dimensions. Take-Two has said that Gearbox will operate as a studio within 2K, which has a long history of partnering with Gearbox on the Borderlands series. Gearbox will continue to be led by its founder and CEO, Randy Pitchford, and his management team. Not too shocking here, right? We knew that Embracer was looking to get rid of a lot of these studios that it did acquire, which, Embracer was all gas acquiring, and now it's all break on trying to get rid of these things. Whatever. Embracer's a mess. When it comes to Gearbox, when it comes to Borderlands, there was no chance that 2K and Take-Two were going to let that that team crumble or fall apart because it's too valuable to them. They've had so much success with Borderlands. So the safest way to deal with that is to make the acquisition themselves. Here we are. Take-Two now has Borderlands and Gearbox, and then they don't have all of the other cruft that comes with Gearbox, like the publishing arm. They're like, no, we just want the team that makes the game that makes us money. That's all we care about, and that's how this deal seems to shake out. Any thoughts on this, Marcus?
I'm excited to see Tiny Tina in GTA 6.
It definitely feels like that's more of a possibility now, right? Why not cross-promote those games?
Put Mad Moxie in WWE 2K.
Yeah, that's where it really needs to happen. This industry is very volatile right now, and this seems to be a pretty common occurrence where a studio's either has just been acquired, is now getting acquired again, or is spinning off to be independent. We'll have a story about that here in a little bit. And I guess the good news here is these teams aren't being shut down, I suppose. But this also just feels like, man, they are playing musical chairs because people are not they were making all these acquisitions because that looked like growth on a spreadsheet, and now that no longer looks like growth, they've been caught holding the bill on all these things. They're like, actually, we can't afford to pay for these studios. What were we thinking? And the answer was they weren't thinking. And so now, sort of the natural evolution of a studio like Gearbox ending up at Take-Two, it's like, okay, that makes some sense. And they're probably just going to make a lot of Borderlands games going forward for Take-Two and 2K. I know that Gearbox wanted to spread out and start making some other stuff. That stuff was recently canceled or put on the shelf. Although I know that the reporting is that in addition to another Borderlands games, which we'll talk about here in a second, they have other games in the works. But I would expect 2K is no, just make the next Borderlands, maybe even make the next Tiny Tina, and then we'll talk. I mean, is that your expectation?
Yeah, I mean, this was a good time for them to pick them up with the movie coming out this year, so they get to benefit from whatever. Yeah. Whatever good sort of trickle down that movie brings, whether it's good or bad, we'll see. But Borderlands hype will be a thing again around the time that movie comes out. And if it does well, just the idea of oh yeah, we got a bunch of upcoming projects based on this potentially really successful movie. And that's ours now. This is great. So good timing for them. And like you said, I didn't really worry that Gearbox was any shutdown danger of no. They're just too big and valuable for they're going to get sold off. So that was never really my concern. So I don't know if I guess I never really thought who would buy them, but Take-Two something about that. I was like, I don't know if I thought they would be the ones to do it, but that makes sense. I guess they got the money.
When you sit down and think about it, it's they're too valuable to Take-Two. So this is $450 million, $460 million is sort of an insurance payment where it's okay, now we know that this team and this IP are protected and we have it. And really, I mean, then Take-Two spending $460 million to own the Borderlands IP. that, that alone's probably kind of makes this deal worth it for them. Then the fact that they get the team making it, that's only going to help. And I suppose that means they get, if the movie does well, which who knows? I honestly have no expectations for that movie, but if it does well, I guess they get that money as well. So they get the, built-in synergy that you were talking about. When it comes to Embracer, though, Lars Wingefers, whatever, CEO of Embracer, had a statement saying this is like us on our way to becoming leaner, is basically what he said. Leaner and more profitable. And it's just like, man, you were the fattest duckling of a company during acquisition season when everyone's making acquisitions and the money was cheap out there and you were buying everything out there and everyone was looking around like, man, you guys seem unwieldy. You have hundreds of studios and maybe almost 1,000 games in the works. How are you going to make this make sense? And they never had an answer when people asked that question. And here we are, because there was no answer. And as soon as things got
question mark on the steps to profit, yes. It was the question mark.
Yes, that was Embracer's, that was where they lived, in that question mark on the chart. Listen, I don't think this makes them all that much leaner, but it does save them some money. I'm sure that paying the salaries and the benefit packages of the people working in Gearbox is expensive, and so you don't have to do that anymore. And then you get some money on the side here. I don't think this changes much for Embracer. I think this maybe extends their period of being able to make some more sales down the line. But Gearbox was the big one for them, for sure. That was the biggest studio, the most expensive studio. So it probably does help to some extent, but I don't think we wake up tomorrow and now Embracer is, headlong into making games and making profit. I think this doesn't necessarily fix their problems. What do you think?
No, I feel like this is still going to be a thing for at least the next year, if I had to guess.
Yeah.
I almost don't know what that looks like when they've shaved up enough of themselves to say okay, we're level again, we're good, and then how do they grow after that? Because it's there's no way they can go on another big acquisition spree, God, for the foreseeable future, and I think they'd be maybe a little bit gun shy to do so after this. I'm more curious about what is post trimming the fat Embracer look like what do they have left,
right?
And then and then just sort of their strategies for growth beyond that, or do they just hey, let's just make money with what we have and maybe not get too let's just put our Infinity Gauntlet down for a while and turn off that weird Thanos part of ourselves that we've been running on for the last couple of years. I don't know, but I'd say the next year or so this is still going to be a offload phase.
It's clear that acquisition season is fully over, and now they're in just try to survive season, it feels like. All right. The next Borderlands game, however, is in active development. This is from Eddie McCoo at GameSpot. As part of the wider announcement that Take-Two has acquired Gearbox from Embracer, Take-Two announced that Gearbox is now in active development on the next Borderlands title. In February this year, Gearbox founder and CEO Randy Pitchford teased the company's next game, saying it is the greatest thing we've ever done. Oh, Randy. Many believe it's the rumored Borderlands 4. The latest entry in the main series was 2019's Borderlands 3. In 2022, the spin-off Tiny Tina's Wonderland was released, and a sequel is reportedly also in the works for that. Almost certain. Would you expect them to take any other risk in any other direction other than a Borderlands 4? To me, that makes all the sense in the world. What do you think, Marcus?
No, that makes sense. I mean, again, with the movie coming out, it's this is the time to double or maybe even triple down on Borderlands. Just assuming hey, people are gonna really want to play Borderlands once Cate Blanchett is on screen. I didn't. Tiny Tina did pretty well for them, right? So
yes, Tiny Tina did. I think it exceeded expectations, is my understanding. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and that had been the first one in a while. So
yes.
Yeah, I fully expect just of course more Borderlands. Sure.
Yes. Right. That's seems to be the safe bet. That seems to be the thing where if you are at Gearbox and you have to make yourself as valuable to these companies as possible that own you. Borderlands is probably the direction you're going to go in. Borderlands, and then when you okay, we're going to make a Borderlands game, Borderlands 4. I don't think you try to mix it up. I don't think you tried to make Borderlands World, and it's going to be the big live service, everlasting version of Borderlands. I don't think you even mess with that. just keep making Borderlands as is until maybe the formula doesn't work. And because Borderlands 3, I think, also exceeded expectations. It did very well for everyone involved. So, yeah, I think you just kind of stick with what works.
Yeah, which is less exciting for me as someone that's kind of like tapped out of Borderlands after the last, like, I'd say after 2, really.
Right.
Of like, man, I kind of would like to see a bigger swing with it. Not in a live servicey way, but like, do something like, I don't know. I guess Tiny Tina is like the closest to that, but like, yeah, I get, like, again, this is me personally. It's like, I would like to see something bigger and a little bolder with that series. But like I said, it does make sense to just like, yeah, just if it ain't broke, just keep doing it.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And I think that for these games, it's like I'm someone who mostly, I think I agree with you, where I'm like, I'm not necessarily thinking, I need to get back into a new Borderlands. But if they keep making them and then people still have this positive buzz around them, I could see myself being like, you know what? Why wouldn't I check back in on Borderlands 4? It has been long enough.
Yeah, I always check in.
Yeah,
I play all of them. And yeah, okay, it's Borderlands. It's cool.
Yeah, I didn't play Tiny Tina's Wonderland or Borderlands 3, so I'm like, if a Borderlands 4 were to come out, I probably would check on that one. So
yeah, like you recharge the
exactly recharge my interest, and I think that so it makes sense. And then that's a little bit easier for me to hop back into than something like a Destiny 2, where it's like, it just keeps building on top of this foundation, and there's more and more and more, and now it's intimidating. Right. And I'm like, I'll just wait until they put out something called Destiny 3. I'll check in at that point. All right. Sega sells Relic and will cut 240 jobs across UK studios. This is from Chris Dring at gamesindustry.biz. Sega has sold Relic Entertainment and will cut 240 roles across Sega Europe, Creative Assembly, and Sega Hardlight. Relic is best known for the Company of Heroes and Dawn of War games and recently developed the new Age of Empires for Microsoft. Relic will transition to an independent studio and will no longer be part of the Sega group of studios. Meanwhile, the majority of the 240 job cuts are across Creative Assembly and Sega Europe, while there will be a small number of cuts from Sega Hardlight. There was no mention of other Sega UK studios, including 2 Point Studios and Sports Interactive. Creative Assembly has already suffered a range of redundancies following the cancellation of its Hyenas project last year. And then there's a quote here, Sega is working closely with Relic on this shift, and we wish them the best for the future, wrote Jurgen Post, who is the newly appointed head of Sega of Europe. I want to sincerely apologize for the worry and understandable distress this news will cause, particularly for those directly affected. These decisions have been incredibly tough to make, and they follow meticulous consideration and deliberation with leadership teams across the business. This is another. So we just talked about, like, hey, musical chairs over there with Gearbox and Borderlands, going from it being independent to being bought by Embracer and then being bought by 2K, while they try to make sense of like where that fits and who has the money to actually afford that team. And then meanwhile, like for a lot of other studios, it's like, hey, either we might just close you down or do you want to figure something out? And repeatedly now we are at the very least, and I suppose this is good news, Marcus, that these teams are finding ways to spin off to be independent. I don't think there's like a ton of money out there for them to get investment, but it seems like there's enough where if you're an established team, you can make something make sense where you're either borrowing money or you're getting a direct investment so you can buy yourself out from a company like Sega to keep going. And Relic does have a proven track record. They Company of Heroes. Well, I know Company of Heroes 3 was a disappointment for many. I think there's an expectation that it's like they can maybe get it there over time, or they put out a new one that people do come around to. Like there's a lot of people who really like Company of Heroes, and so there's something there. Why would we let this team just fall apart when instead they can just go out and be on their own and keep things going? It's bad news wrapped in something maybe of a silver lining here. What do you think, Marcus?
Yeah, it's kind of like the things have to get worse before they can get better kind of a thing.
Yes.
Of like, yeah, it's cool that like you're independent, and we saw this with was it Toys for Bob too, not that long ago.
Exactly, Toys for Bob. Yes, we'll talk about them in a little bit. Yes.
Yeah. So I guess like in the long term, it's like cool. I'm glad. Like more studios, being able to be self-sufficient is great, and like more power to them. It sucks that it had to come at the cost of over 200 jobs. Yes. But I mean, I guess it's just it's like I hate using the term necessary evil, because I feel like that's like kind of like corporate talk a bit, like, well, there's no other way. But it's like, I guess if this is like the last like big cut that gets us there, it's like, so be it, I guess. Hearts goes out to everyone that was affected in that. But yeah, I hope that I hope that they can find, like you said, I know funding is like weird right now, and but I hope that they can kind of weather this storm and again sort of like restabilize and continue making cool stuff. Like you said, Company of Heroes 3 maybe like didn't quite hit the mark, but like I hope that that's like, I mean, it doesn't seem like it was, but like not some like weird death knell, and that they'll make a Company of Heroes 4 or whatever it is that they decide to pursue. Because at the end of the day, we need more studios and not less of them.
Right.
So.
And this is also a team that has proven it can do strong work for hire games. That new Age of Empires that got pointed out there. So they have relationships with Microsoft, who we talked about it yesterday on this show. Toys for Bob has that deal. Like, they got spun off by Microsoft, but then they immediately made a deal to make a game for Microsoft. I imagine that the Company of Heroes team at Relic, the Age of Empires team at Relic, could probably make a similar deal if Microsoft is so willing. And Microsoft does still need games, despite what everyone's talking about. Like, there's a fewer people playing games, or at least they're spending fewer hours playing games. That's going to rebound at some point. Like, yeah, it's dipping back down, but that's going to bounce back up. There are more people playing games over time in the long run. That's going to keep going in that direction. You're going to need to have something there for them. So you can't completely be like, well, we just stopped making games. We're washing our hands of it. So I think that if you are a team like Relic that has those relationships, you should be able to capitalize on those to a certain extent. And, there's also the chance of, spending some years working as a support studio, things like that, which I think would be a shame for a team that has done such work. I mean, people consider Company of Heroes and Company of Heroes 2 to be Game of the Year material. It's a team that's done some stuff that people truly love. So if they have to go do work as a support studio, that's a little bit, that would be a shame, although no shame to the studio having to like make ends meet. But they could have that opportunity as well and take some time, rebuild, and then once the industry is in a better place, be able to get some of these bigger projects green lighted and go from there.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a universe where Microsoft just outright acquires them because of those existing relationships.
Right. And I'm like, that I do wonder, like, what is the state of acquisitions right now? Because, I keep saying acquisition season is over. And it's like, because you look at this stuff, it's like there was a time when these companies like Gearbox would have gone for $1.3 billion. And now it's like, $460 million at most. We're not going to pay anything more than that. So it's like a lot of these, clearly the prices are coming down and the fervor is quieting for getting these studios and bringing them in and growing that way. But like a company like Microsoft still has to feed the Game Pass beast. Or are they like, hey, no, we have enough and we need to make do with what we have, and actually they aren't going to make any more acquisitions? And it's like, we talk a lot about consolidation, Marcus, and the problems there, but there are also problems when the big companies stop making acquisitions, where it's now a lot of these studios looking like, what is the end goal here? We're trying to grow so that we can be an appealing target for an acquisition, because we as the owners want to like cash out someday. And it's like, if there is no one out there buying, what are we doing all this for? It's actually, we're just kind of like running on a treadmill, and we have to try to make the next big game, and that's really tough to pull off these days. So yeah, it's rough out there. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we have a lot more headlines to get to, including a new Xbox. We'll talk about that right after this. All right, we are back, and that new Xbox it's the same Xbox, but with a new coat of paint and maybe no disk drive. Yeah, images of a white, all-digital Xbox Series X console have reportedly leaked. This is from Tom Ivan at VGC. Images showing a white, all-digital Xbox Series X console have seemingly leaked. The low-quality images appear to show a white version of Microsoft's existing console that's similar in form apart from the removal of its disk drive. Xputer reported last month that Microsoft was planning to launch a white, all-digital Xbox Series X console this summer. It claimed that the console will include a few upgraded components, such as an improved heatsink, but that elsewhere there will be no major enhancements. And really, that's just them saving money, right? You improve the heatsink so you can use fewer materials, and that saves them a little bit of money, which is mostly what these things are all about. It's reportedly expected to retail for less than the current Xbox Series X console, which launched in November 2020 and has an estimated retail price, of $500 basically. Although it's often available for significantly less, and that's the launch Xbox Series X. So this is going to be less than that. Marcus, let's start there. Do you have any? Is this appealing to you at all? A white all digital Xbox Series X with no disk drive, and if it is, how much would you pay for it?
No. But, I mean, I'd say that as someone that already owns a regular Xbox Series X.
Same.
So like, I don't need one, and also like I'm an old man and I still would like a disk drive, which I contradict myself constantly because I don't think I own maybe 3 physical games of this generation.
Right.
I am a digital. I'm part of the problem that I just buy digital games, but I still just like having the option because you never know, you know. So yeah, I still have a hard time reconciling with the idea of having an all digital box, even though if I probably ripped that Band-Aid off, I'd be fine. So I mean, like I don't need it. Like I have a working Xbox. It's cool that it's cheaper. It's always nice to get cheaper versions of things, you know, especially these days. Especially if it's like a little bit better. It sounds like just like, you know, some of the stuff in there is a little bit better.
Yeah, it'll probably have like a smaller chip. It'll probably have a smaller system on a chip so that they do need less heat sink. So that's probably what this is. They're getting better performance, but what they're going to, instead of using that to get better performance in games, they'll just like lower the clocks, have it run at a lower heat, and so a lower frequency, which produces less heat, which means they need a smaller heat sink, and all those things combined enable them to make something that saves them a lot of money, and that's what this will be about, is saving them money.
Yeah, I wonder if they would, like, if this will replace the current Series X. Like, will they just sell through what's left and stop manufacturing it, or if they're going to continue to produce those alongside this other one?
Probably not, and the reason I say that is because it's less money, right? If they are charging this for charging less money for this, I think part of them is like, we don't want to backtrack on the gains we made in increasing prices. So this goes in at $450 probably. That's where I would expect it to launch at, and then the other one stays at $500, and then you just have both on the market. For one, you don't want to have a lot of people being like, they are definitely trying to move us all to all digital. Even though they don't want to make it obvious that that's what is happening. They want to say the options thing. We give you options and then you can decide. And they want to keep doing that. I don't think they want to like pull that away and make it clear what they're trying to do. And then, you know, if you have a $500 system and now the $500 system goes away and you only have a $450 system, when you go back to launch a new hardware for next generation, now it's like, oh, we're jumping from $450 to whatever the price is for that next thing, instead of $500 to whatever the price is for the next thing. And in people's heads, that's just like a difficult challenge for Microsoft to overcome. So I think keeping both in stores will be the answer for them. It provides a lot of like solutions to the arguments they make with gamers all the time, I think.
Yeah. The only downside is that messaging, which has always been the big problem with the Xbox Series brand, is the confusion of like, well, which one is which? What's the difference between an X and an S? And now you have another X out there, so then there's 2 X's, and then you have to be like, well, which one has a disc and one doesn't? So like, what do you call the X without the disc? Is it just the Xbox Series X digital edition? And then, like, how is that immediately clear to someone that just at a glance
looks
at a bunch of Xboxes and goes like, okay, what's the one that
you call it the SAD again, right? I mean, I know that was for the Xbox One S all digital, the SAD, but that's now what I associate with these digital ones. The Xbox SAD is back, everybody. Here we go.
Yeah, Xbox X-D, and it's like minus disk drive is what it means. And they'll think that it's really clever, but it's actually extremely confusing.
Oh yeah, that's almost certainly what's going to happen. Is they'll have something they think is clever, and we'll all be like, what does this mean? Or it'll be something stupid when we look at it, be like, that's a joke, right? And it's like, no, they mean it. All right, a big shakeup at Nintendo Testing Center ahead of Switch 2. Nintendo, and I think this comes from Kotaku. Shout outs to Kotaku. Nintendo of America is restructuring the small army of contractors that help test its games and hardware in its Washington State headquarters. The company confirmed to Kotaku. According to current and former contractors, the result is a massive downsizing that comes amid layoffs across the rest of the video game industry, and after the Mario Maker reportedly delayed the launch of a Switch 2 successor until 2025. These changes will involve some contractor assignments ending, as well as the creation of a significant number of new full-time employee positions, a spokesperson for Nintendo told Kotaku in an email. Contractors at Nintendo of America who feel undervalued and underpaid have long called on the company to make them full-time, red badge employees instead of exploiting loopholes in seasonal work requirements. While some of them are now finally getting converted to direct hires, others, including testers with over 10 years of experience, are getting the boot, though Nintendo says everyone impacted will receive severance packages. When contacted for comment, a spokesperson for Nintendo provided the following statement. Nintendo of America has reorganized its product development efforts, or its product testing functions, to drive greater global integration in game development efforts. The changes will also better align NOA with inter-regional testing procedures and operations. These changes will involve some contractor assignments ending, as well as the creation of a significant number of new full-time employee positions. For all assignments that are ending, the contractors' agencies with NOA support will offer severance packages and provide assistance during their transition. For those contractor associates who will be leaving us, we are tremendously grateful for their important contributions they've made to our business, and we extend our heartfelt thanks for their work and the service to Nintendo. Marcus, so I think really the underlying story here is that Nintendo probably just doesn't have a lot going on for this next year, and they're looking at, hey, we have all these contractors that are here to test games, and they've kind of gone through and tested all the games that we have ready to go. Nintendo is a company that does testing and things for the and development like way ahead of time, and then they keep these games on the shelves. And it feels like the games that we're going to get this year from Nintendo, we're about to get through here in a couple months the games that they've already announced, including Paper Mario, The 1,000-Year Door, and Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. And then after that, there's not a lot left for them to talk about because they've already announced that those two games and nothing else after that. But if they have games to release after that, it's likely going to be stuff like the Fire Emblem remake that has been rumored and been finished for quite some time, or Metroid Prime 2 and 3 HD remasters, which have also likely been done for a long time. And then there's a handful of other games that are probably in a similar position. So it's like they don't have a lot of big first-party AAA games for these people to work on. And it sounds like instead of keeping them around, they're just going to end those contracts and reorganize and move on from there. But it's like, man, even Nintendo, I get they've delayed the Switch 2, but even Nintendo doesn't have a lot of games coming up for these people to work on. It just feels like we went from this high tide of 1 million games coming out because the pandemic ended, and now we've fallen off a cliff. It feels kind of rough out there, Marcus. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, no, that's been the story of like just all these layoffs, right? Like everyone rode the wave of the pandemic, and then it abruptly ended. Everyone's like, "Oh crap! Okay, what do we do?" So it's not surprising, but it is weird to hear Nintendo being part of this because they've been largely absent from like all this talk about like mass layoffs and stuff like that. So it's like, oh, there it is. There's theirs. It finally caught up to them.
Right.
Yeah, I guess it sucks. You would think that once the Switch 2 does come out, which, whatever next year, whenever that's supposed to be, you could pay to keep them on board for like whatever you got going on over there. But again, if they have nothing of like, would they just be, I mean, it feels like there's always something you give them to do, but if they think like if you're just going to be sitting on your hands basically until we have Switch 2 launch titles ready to go or whatever that looks like, I guess, I can only assume they looked at their pipeline and was like, well, the gap between then and now is too large. It would make more sense to just, say goodbye to some of these people. It sucks,
Yeah, I mean, this does feel like the kind of thing where it's like these people probably were in a position to like, okay, we're here. We know there's going to be a lot of work because you are going to probably have us test Switch 2 and the Switch 2 UI and Switch 2 like the new store and then just like the actual using of the new device in addition to any and all of the games that would have launched alongside the Switch 2, and that stuff probably would have been kicking off like right now. And then for them to be like, we're delaying all that stuff, and we don't necessarily know exactly when it's going to be coming out now, although no time before March of next year, like at the earliest. That's the internal reporting, or that's the reports out of those internal communications. So it's like, okay, if you are Nintendo of America and you are like looking around and be like, we are just going to probably because the way the contract works, and I'm no expert on labor law, but the way I understand it is like you have to keep these contractors around for a certain amount of time. But if you keep them around for any time longer than that, then you do have to take them on as full-time employees, or they have to be not employed by you as a contractor for a certain amount of time, and then you could bring them back. So it sounds like they're trying to time that up a little bit here. And in the meantime, what that actually looks like is Nintendo is paying less money to employ people for their labor. And so it's basically effectively the same thing as layoffs because they just are not spending as much money on labor right now. And it's a shame. I guess good news for the people that did get those full-time positions. And I hope that these contractors are able to come back and do all this work when Nintendo is paying for it. But in the meantime, it's like this just feels callous, like all these decisions in this business right now. When do you expect the Switch 2 to launch? And do you think it could come out by March of next year? Because right now I'm like, even that seems like they're not even planning for that. That feels like if that was happening, it's like, why not kind of just get started right now? That gives you about a year to get there with all this testing. And if they're like, no, we don't even have any games to test for that right now, it's like, man, really? I don't know. It seems strange to me. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't even know anymore.
Right, same. That's where I'm at. I don't know.
It's like you could throw any date. Like I probably my ceiling is like I have a hard time believing holiday next year. Like I don't know. I don't think they could get through a whole nother year of like nothing basically. So it's almost like they kind of have to hit that March date just to make this sort of like weird drought of brand new stuff shorter. But like I just without the context of like how far along it is and what they're trying to do and just anything, it feels like it's so nebulous now. But so it's like you tell me a window, I'm like, sure. I guess I have no choice but to believe you. So,
yep.
Sure.
That's exactly where I'm at, where it's like, this is a company that is, you get in a pattern with them. You're like, okay, they're going to launch that thing at the end of this year. They're coming up to the end of the games they have announced, and then we'll just go into these holidays. There will be a Switch 2. It makes all the sense in the world. And they're like, no, we want to take a little bit more time on the games. It's like, oh yeah, Nintendo is in a position where they feel like they can do that, so they're going to do that. But then it's like, well, okay, well then what does it look like? Are they going to launch the game or launch the system in the first half of the year like they did with the Switch? Because they did that because the Wii U was floundering, so it kind of didn't matter when they launched the Switch. It's like they just needed to get something new out there to restart the generation for them. And it's like, okay, yeah, so I guess they could do that again, but why would they do that in a world where the Switch is doing so well and they can kind of like ride that for some time, even if they aren't selling a ton of new hardware, which they actually kind of are still. Like it's dipping in North America, it's dipping in Europe, it's continuing to sell very well in Japan though. It's like, why wouldn't they just keep riding that? It seems like they might. So yeah, very unpredictable company. It's going to be hard to know exactly when they're going to pull the trigger on that device.
Yeah. Maybe Switch 2 is done, but they're just waiting for Metroid Prime 4 because they really want to. We really got to launch it with this. So they're like, we're waiting on you, Retro. It's not us.
I still am in the camp where I believe it's possible we get Metroid Prime 4 on the original Switch, but I'm ready to have egg on my face for that. Yeah, you don't have to say it like that. You don't have to say it like I'm a terminal patient. Like, oh, really? Oh, you think that?
I don't want to. It's like, yeah, when somebody tells you that they still believe, you're like, really? That's what you believe? Okay. Well, I mean, that's cool.
Goddamn,
I'm not here to judge.
You're probably right, though. I'm trying to accept it, but I want to keep believing.
Yeah, hey, I respect it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, moving on here. Sega of America workers ratify union contract protecting 150 employees. This is from Michael McWhorter and Nicole Carpenter at Polygon. Workers at Sega of America voted Tuesday to ratify their first collectively bargained contract with the U.S. arm of the video game company, granting new protections and raises for about 150 full-time and temporary employees. Workers in the union, known as Allied Employees Guild Improving Sega, or AEGIS, won important concessions from Sega of America as part of the contract, building raises for all employees, layoff protections, and a commitment to crediting people on games they've worked on, including early QA testers. It also affords employees in the union other protections, including letting workers pursue creative work in addition to their work at Sega, and a guaranteed continuation of hybrid work. Workers will also receive just cause protections, joining tender clause workers and being the only ones in North America video game industry to have them, organizers said. In the state of California, where Sega of America's offices are located, workers are employed at will, meaning employers can terminate employees for almost any reason, provided that reason is not unlawful. These protections mean employers must follow a series of strict guidelines before getting rid of a worker, whether through firing or other means. Some good news. It feels like this is like the one hand that goes with the other. We are in a volatile time for this business, which is like traditionally very volatile. So people are experiencing it in a way where it's like when we were in the high times of every game was making a ton of money and people were spending more time on games through the pandemic. It was very easy to look around and be like, hey, we'll talk about unions because protections are needed. And I've lost Marcus, so we'll see if he hops back in. Oh, there he is. But Marcus is already back. Can you hear me, Marcus? Maybe not. We'll see. Oh, he's getting connected right there. So when we were in those high times, it was very easy for, I think, people to talk about unions for the protections they could have provided for a number of reasons. And I'm going to make sure I still am not losing it on OBS. We're good there. But it was also very easy to be like, that's a lot of work. Why would we do that? We're kind of getting everything we need from these companies. We feel secure in our positions. And now that volatility has really come home, I think that these companies are looking at employees as human resources that can be cut as needed, and we've seen that repeatedly now. And so unions are this weapon that I think after so many years of talking about it, now people are like, we can actually wield this as a powerful tool to get what we need. And it's awesome to see that Sega is making that happen. Marcus, it says you're muted. I don't know if you can hear me. It seems like you are still trying to get connected. Feel free to restart Discord if you need to, and we'll get you back in here. In the meantime, let's move on to this next story. Rumour, Toys for Bob is making a new Spyro game. This is from Jonas Mackey at Game Reactor. There have been a lot of news pieces written about Toys for Bob this year. First, they were negatively affected by Activision Blizzard's layoffs. Then they were thought to be shut down after that it was revealed that they are leaving Activision Blizzard to become an independent studio. And most recently, that Microsoft will publish their next project. So it's been quite a roller coaster for them. So what is that next game? When the split from Activision Blizzard was announced, the studio wrote that our team is excited to develop new stories, new characters, and new gameplay experiences, which sounds like something spanking new. On the other hand, during a recent meeting with its staff, corporate vice president of Microsoft Studios, Matt Booty, reportedly said that the studio's upcoming title will be similar to games Toys for Bob has made in the past. And now the very known Crash Bandicoot and Spyro content creator, Canadian Guy A, says in a new video that he knows that it is named Spyro 4. He says he heard this from several developers during Games Developer Conference and also rumors before that, and it has been in active development since January 2024, which is like 2 months ago. So pretty wild. We've completely lost Marcus now, so I think he's restarting Discord. But this is something that I'm not too surprising. I think on a Bombcast, we were talking about this, where we were saying, hey, what would we want them to do? And I think all of us kind of settled on, hey, a new Spyro makes a lot of sense. They did just do Crash 4, so it's probably sometime before they'll get back to Crash Bandicoot. Banjo-Kazooie is another possibility, but they've likely already have, if Microsoft is making a Banjo-Kazooie, they probably have already gotten someone making Banjo-Kazooie, so that doesn't make a lot of sense. A Spyro game makes a ton of sense, and Spyro 4, kind of being like, hey, let's forget all those other Spyro games that came out. Let's instead just make the next real Spyro game. That's something that I think worked for Crash, and they want to replicate that with Spyro as well. I'm excited about this to a certain extent, and at the same time, I'm like, I liked Spyro when I originally played it. I played it a lot more with that Spyro remake trilogy, and I'm like, these are well-made games. They're decent. They never blew my socks off. So I was mostly like, I think Spyro's okay. That makes it sound more negative than I even intend. I don't think Spyro's bad in any way. I just think I would like if the studio was doing something a little bit more exciting to me personally, but I know a lot of people really like Spyro. Jamie H. Christmas Eve says Spyro greater than Crash. I agree with that. That's true. That's definitely the case, for me personally at least. Although Crash 4, I think maybe Crash 4 is actually a little bit above Spyro at a certain point. All right. Game developers are being sued for making their games too addicting. This is from Alex Hopley at Game Reactor. A new lot of lawsuits have been filed against the likes of Rockstar, Mojang, and hey, Janet Cho, everybody. Look at that.
Oh, never mind. I see Marcus. I heard addiction, and I came running.
We got the addicted boy himself here. Let's see if we can get Marcus in here. Marcus, are you there? It says you're muted. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to get connected. It seems like you're like some problems with Discord. We'll see. Give him a second. In the meantime, Alex Hopley at Game Reactor writes, a new lot of lawsuits have been filed against the likes of Rockstar, Mojang, Activision Blizzard, Epic Games, Roblox, and more for making games addicting. Multiple complaints have come from all across the United States, targeting game developers for supposedly exploiting players. One lawsuit from Arkansas alleges that a woman has seen a strong decline in her son's behavior since he started playing addictive video games. She first noted these behaviors when he was 12. Other things might happen when you are 12 years old, but whatever. Now 21, the son is reported to spend $350 a month on games, has dropped out of school, been diagnosed with depression and anxiety, and experiences withdrawal symptoms that result in rage, anger, and physical outbursts. The suit alleges that it is the creators that are liable for the damages caused by their neglectful design, but the game developers aren't going to take this lying down. Their argument is that finding their expression through their games to be too entertaining is not a reason to have them shut down. A lot of games nowadays reward you for time spent in them, as well as your overall skill. Fortnite's Battle Pass, for example, requires you to keep playing at risk of losing precious skins at the end of your reward track. So yeah, this is a lot of the games I think mentioned in this, like Minecraft, Epic Games, Fortnite, and Roblox, obviously. But this lawsuit, like, it's just like, hey, Grand Theft Auto is too fun and too addicting. And I guess Grand Theft Auto Online probably does have like a lot of Battle Pass stuff, and there's clearly like dark patterns in all of these things. There are clearly psychological tricks that these developers are wielding against the player to get them playing for a longer amount of time, because that increases the likelihood that they'll spend more money later. But at the same time, it's like, hey, I appreciate the developer's position here that they are making the game more entertaining and making people want to play for longer. And that's what a lot of people want from these games. So where's the balance? I think that it won't hurt to have regulators look into this stuff, to have experts like actually try to figure out how these games are exploiting us. I don't necessarily know if I trust the government to be able to figure out what the answer to those problems would be. I think more information about how these games know how our brains work, and then using that information against us in a mass way to get us to spend more money. Yeah, let's look into that. That can't hurt. And at the same time, I don't want the games to be made worse so that I'm less addicted to them. That doesn't seem like the answer either. All right. We'll give Marcus one last chance to get in here while we hit the quick hits. Quick hits and then one restful trails. PlayStation Store Spring Sale is on with thousands of games available at discount. So you can go ahead and check that out now. I think that's running at least through the end of the month. Then PlayStation Plus is giving away Immortals of Avium, Minecraft Legends, and Skull in April. And that's Skull with one L. I don't know what that is. Thunderful is selling developer Head Up for 500,000 euro. I think it's after Thunderful originally acquired it for much more than that. So it's another example of one of these studios spinning off and finding a way to survive. I think that Head Up is going to a new company that is owned by someone that still works at Thunderful, and I think originally started Head Up. So it's like one of these situations where it's like, well, we don't want to pay for it ourselves, but if you want to find a way to make that keep going on your own, feel free. And then finally, Sony won a patent infringement lawsuit that said its controllers used previously existing and protected technology. That was something like a massive number, but Sony won that. It was like $500 million or something like that. Sony won that. They can keep using that, so they won that patent infringement lawsuit. And then finally, restful trails to Joseph Lieberman, a video game villain from the 90s. He was one of the main politicians that was bringing video games as a violent medium that was going to corrupt children to the eyes of the Senate. The games he would bring were like Mortal Kombat, I think like Time Crisis, and Night Trap, of course. So that's cue the Night Trap music right there. Joseph Lieberman, of course, lost that fight. It was something he kept trying to keep going even after the ESRB came around. They're like, we'll put ratings on games. Is that cool? And most politicians were like, yeah. Joseph Lieberman kept fighting that and kept trying to make a big deal of violent video games. And then he, of course, was the vice presidential candidate for Al Gore. So yeah, rest in peace, I guess. Bye, Joseph Lieberman. All right, let's get to the poll question. Let's do that. And while I'm getting that set up, since Marcus is having trouble getting connected, let's do one more reminder. Subscription.GameInformer.com. Go to GameInformer.com, subscribe to them, make that happen. They are doing some excellent work over there, and they have been for a while. Hung out with a lot of people from Game Informer while we were at PAX. They're part of the Nasty Boys clan that we've decided is the crew that we're going to call the Nasty Boys. They were a lot of fun, and of course, they're doing a lot of great work, so definitely check them out. All right, let me get this going, /community. All right, there we go. And here is the poll question. Are you okay that Larian Studios' next game isn't going to be Baldur's Gate? Bring that up for everybody. News assets, fade. 96%. Is this the old poll question? Did we not do the new poll question yet again? Getting pretty bad at that. All right. Yeah, wrong poll. Let me refresh. I don't think maybe we never put it up. All right. So we'll do two poll questions. Oh yeah, why do I? This don't. Okay, I see. It's right there. Which one are you more excited for? This doesn't work anymore. It usually shows. Okay, there we go. Which one are you more excited for? Judas from Ken Levine, BioShock, or neither? Judas from Ken Levine. It was 35%. BioShock 4, 15%, and 49% said neither. So almost half are not interested in either game. But when it comes to Judas from Ken Levine, a little bit more, like twice as many people are interested in that. I'm sorry, these poll questions have broke now, so you have to actually click on them to see the results. That's annoying. All right, a new poll question. How are you feeling about the future of video games? Great, I'm not worried. Good, I'm somewhat worried. And bad, I'm really worried. I kind of want to just take your guys' poll on this, a pulse on this, see how everyone's feeling about video games overall. I'm somewhere in between, I think, personally. I'm a little worried. You know what it feels like? 10 years ago, we were talking about, hey, the end of consoles, and that felt so absurd as soon as the consoles came out, the PS4 and the Xbox One, and they both did very well. And now it feels like all of the concerns we had back then are happening now, where it's like, hey, live service games and mobile games, they're distracting players, and they're going to take up all the oxygen out of the room. And back then, it's like, well, no, that's absurd. We're going to keep getting a million different games. And that was true for a while, and now here we are. There are like 5 games that people are playing, and that's it. And so, yeah, I'm a little bit worried, but I want to see how everyone else is feeling. Maybe games are going to bounce back in a big way, and that's how you feel. Or maybe you're way more worried than I am. Let's see how everyone's feeling when we answer this poll question, and then talk about it on Game S Mornings on Giant Bomb tomorrow for Dregs Day with Tam. Looking forward to that. We'll get the result then. Speaking of Giant Bomb, what do we have happening? We'll have Voicemail Dump Truck later today. And then on Friday, look out for UPF. We're going to probably play a handful of games. I want to play, let's see, what do I have happening? I want to play that South Park game. I want to get that going. Hey, we got Marcus back. All right. Can you hear me?
Oh, what the hell happened?
I don't know. You went to the Phantom Zone.
I guess so. I'm back. Zod says hi.
All right. Well, hey, you want to do that one last pitch for a Game Informer subscription?
Sure. Yes. So yes, like you mentioned up top, print subscriptions are back. Game Informer, but you can subscribe to us directly without going through GameStop. To do that, you can go to the URL subscription.gameinformer.com. You can get 10 issues of the magazine, both physical and digital. The subscription includes both, but you get 10 issues a year, $19.91 for the year. It's less than $2 an issue, and you get an 84-page magazine filled with reviews, cover stories, interviews, features, profiles from our staff, as well as our awesome fleet of freelance contributors. And yeah, it's a great way to support GI directly, and we really appreciate it. So you can do it right now, subscription.gameinformer.com.
And tell people where they can find you if you want to tell them like your Twitter handle or something like that, and where they can find your work.
You can find me on Twitter at Marcus Stewart 7. That's the number 7. You can also find me on Blue Sky at the same account, though admittedly I'm much less active there. So, but it does exist. And of course, you can follow my work on GameInformer.com. You can catch us or me on our Twitch channel as well, twitch.tv/GameInformer. I usually stream a couple times a week, especially every Friday. Ongoing Super Replay series. Currently playing through the entirety of the Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask for the first time.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so that's been a lot of fun. So that'll be happening tomorrow. And yeah, I think that's all the plugs that I got in my bag here.
Awesome. And then I asked this poll question, how are you feeling about the future of video games? Great. I'm not worried. Good. I'm somewhat worried. And bad. I'm really worried. How are you feeling about the future of video games?
That's an issue. The future of video games in terms of like just the products themselves.
You interpret the question however you need. Like, just, yeah, like, how are you feeling about the, the variety, the quality, the getting the kinds of games that you like, that sort of thing? I'm
feeling good, I guess. Good. I don't know whatever's like good, the scale. I'm feeling good about that. I think a lot of cool games are coming out, whether it's like AAA or indie stuff. Like, variety has been great. In terms of like on an industry level, I think obviously it's not great. But I try to be positive. I like to think this, we'll get on the other side of this eventually.
Yes.
So like in the longest term, I like to believe that it will work out or will work itself out in some way or another. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. Not great now. Optimistic for the future, as naive as that might be. We'll see. But I like to, I want to think that we're going to get better. You know,
I like that answer. I think when you're right on the long term, when you look at the grand scale of time, I think we're going to be on the other side of this and like thinking back, like remember when things were really bleak in 2024, and look how far we've come. We will get to that point again. I agree with that. All right. Any other things to clear up? I think we talked about what's happening on Giant Bomb. Yeah, fun stuff will happen on UPF, and then we'll have a BCR. We'll figure out what that's going to look like. So tune in for that as well. Thank you for watching, everybody. Marcus, thank you so much for hanging out with me today and talking about video games. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, and thank you all for watching. You're the best audience in gaming. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye.